Hey, my people, just saying hi. Pretty excited. We had about maybe 3 hours rain today here in Central Florida. Well, in my area, we hadn't had rain here about I don't know about 3 weeks. So constantly, every day watering the plants. This will help. So thank God, got rain for the plants. So reflecting on so many things. Uh, the way you know basically my life is played out. Was born in difficult situations, poor family in the mountains of El Salvador. Then was limited about everything. You know, uh, One thing that I'm not proud, but I'm not ashamed, and it's not I'm not responsible. It just it happened not only to me, it happened to thousands and thousands of kids that we didn't have the opportunity to go to school. My dad had the great idea that I'll go build his life on a mountain, about 5, 6 miles away from each direction, a school. And he signed us up for a school. Me and the brother that's older than me. It's him and that's me. So, but when things got serious, we were starting the third grade. They were asking for, more supplies at school and uniforms. So he pulled us out. He said, "Nah, you're not going to school. Go work on the farm." And so, because we live in this huge mountain, there was no water springs there. So we had to take a hike about 5 miles to get water. So that was my job assignment. I was the water boy. Get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, get the horses ready, 2, 3 horses, and head down the mountain and load them up with water and come up. And sometimes my mom, we had a lot of animals, so she'll say, "Oh, you need to go another trip." That was tough. And then I had the opportunity to come to this country. In this country, just opened up a new world for me, new life, new opportunity. I realized that over here, if you work hard and you apply yourself and you learn, you get to places. There's many stories about people that come here that that they learn construction, bricklaying, masonry, or different things, and then end up having their own company. So, and I see a lot of people now complaining that they've been here 20 years, 30 years. Me, I've been here 40, almost 47 years. So, you know, I know nothing about El Salvador. This is my country. I became a naturalized citizen in 1992. So, yes, I was born in El Salvador, but uh, El Salvador never gave me anything except poverty. And I had a career here. Started sweeping in a bakery and made it. Within a week, I was in a table learning how to make bread. And from there, I climb up in the job, became in charge of the biggest machine that produce like four kinds of bread. And I learned without even knowing English how to work the machine. The funny thing is, I tell you guys this story about that machine. So the boss came to me and he says, I need you to learn that machine and you got a week to do it. He was tough. He was Jimmy Giacomo. He was a Sicilian. He was about 4 feet tall and about 4 feet round, but tough as nails. He was so tough that he had a son there that worked the night shift. Well, his two sons worked the night shift there. But Robert was the oldest. He was like 36, married with he had two kids, and he used to make a lot of mistakes. And Jimmy used to come like every day, 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, every day. And that's when the drivers were loading up their trucks, different routes. And when Robert made mistake, most of the mistake he made was burn the bread. And Jimmy used to slap him around, pa, pa, and Robert's face would be red in front of us. And all like, he used to yell at him in his Italian, testatura, stupido. So, how tough was that's how tough was Jimmy. But so when he came to me and he said, I need you to learn that machine and you're going to learn it. And he says, Jose is going to train you. Jose was a Portuguese guy. Jose was a nice guy. I mean, sometimes you come across good people. I mean, good people. And I went in and I said to Jose spoke pretty good Spanish. He spoke Spanish, English, French, and Portuguese. Very smart guy. And I said, Jose, what do I need to learn? He said, well, the first thing you need to learn is the settings of this machine and the list that you gotta produce every day. And I say, well, how am I gonna do that? Well, he said, here's the list. That looked Chinese to me. The list was in English. I've been here like maybe 6 months or less. That could have been in Russian, Chinese, whatever. To me, it was like just a blur. And I say, did this list change every day? He says, yeah, the numbers change, the amounts. I understood that. Numbers the same, everywhere. Except when you write them in French. So, Roman, Roman numbers. I'm not good at that. So, I said, okay. I said, can I ask you a favor? I said, I'm supposed to be here 1 week with you in training. Don't throw away this list starting today, and you're gonna write in Spanish below each thing. I don't remember what I told him, and write for me, and and settings and all that for each bread. And he did. So he saved for me, I saved 6 lists. For example, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays I was off. And he he translated every day, every list to me. And I saved those papers like it was money. And then within a week, he said, I'm not allowed to be here with you anymore. You're on your own. You can ask me questions, but you're on your own. That's what Jimmy wants, and I cannot be here. And I learned that machine like you had no idea. I was fast, unbelievable. Jimmy used to come and watch me, and he used to tell me, he says, Pablo, I wish I'll find 2 more people that are half as good as you are. Can you find them for me? So I used to laugh. So, in those, the point that I'm trying to make here is people that are Salvadorians and going back to El Salvador are having such a hard time over there adjusting to the bureaucracy over there, the craziness on the little things, phone bills, electric bills, getting driver's license. It's a mess over there. So, and here we come to this amazing country that, I learned how to drive here. I got my license in New York, 1984. 1984, I got my license, my driver's license. Back then there was no tests in Spanish, no Spanish application. Everything was English. There was only one language more besides English, was Mandarin. And I guess that's Chinese language. And I went to the window and I asked for application for the permit. You had to fill up a paper application. This is before computers, man. And the clerk asked me, he said, you want a Mandarin, you want English? I said, English. And I was already, trying to navigate my life through here. And I did it. And I submitted. And I went to the class for the permit. And I got my learner's permit. And I started, driving. And I was not legal yet. I was in the process of being legal. Because by 1985, early 85, I got my visa to become a legal resident. So they gave me a choice. You had to leave the country. And this is another thing that I don't understand. People say, well, why we have to leave the country to go get our visa? And, did you just hand it to us here? No, the law says you have to go outside the borders of U.S. and re-enter legal. I don't know all the details, but that's the law. So they gave you a choice back then: Canada, Mexico, or El Salvador. So because El Salvador was in a terrible war, and my parents lived so far away from the capital where I needed to do all my paperwork, I picked Mexico. and I went to Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, El Paso. And that's where I got my visa to re-enter legal, 1985. And by 92, you had to wait 5 years to become U.S. citizen. By 1992, I applied for my citizenship, and I went through the, tests and went through all the questionnaires and got my interview, and that they'd ask you 100 questions, and then you had to answer like 80. I think it was 80 out of 100. And now the questions is like, uh, I think it's still 80, but you have to answer like 10. So that's part of my story here, and that's why I'm so grateful for this country. That if I was to go right now to El Salvador, I will have so much problems, not only figuring it out what legal things that do I need, but the bureaucracy, well, you need this, no, you need to go over there, you need to go there, and then you come back here, and you don't qualify for this because you've been too long out of the country, and this, come on, man. In this country, you go to an office, bam, 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 you get settled. It's like two different roles. But, if I offend anybody with this conversation, well, I have the right to tell, my story. And I'm not making anything up. This is what I have experienced in this country. And this country, it is the best country in the world. And God bless this country. Talk to you guys later. See you on the next one.